Summer vacations are supposed to be full of laughter, beaches, road trips, and unforgettable memories. But sometimes, the warm sunshine hides the darkest secrets. These are 3 terrifying true stories of people who went on vacation, expecting peace and fun, but instead, they returned with nightmares that will haunt them forever. It was the summer of 2016, a time when most people were out enjoying beaches, road trips, or simply visiting new places to escape the stress of life. For one college student named Daniel, it was supposed to be his best vacation ever, but instead, it turned into a memory that still makes him shiver whenever summer rolls around. Daniel was 21, studying engineering, and like most students, he was looking forward to summer break. He and 3 of his closest friends decided to take a trip to a small beach town in Florida. It wasn't a famous tourist spot, which was exactly why they chose it. They wanted a quiet escape, a place where they could hang out without crowds, have bonfires on the beach, and enjoy late-night swims under the stars. The first 2 days went exactly as planned. They rented a small beach house that was a little old, but cozy enough for 4 young friends who didn't care much about luxury. They spent their time swimming, grilling food, and staying up late talking about life. But on the 3rd night, things started to feel off. It was around 11 p.m. when Daniel decided to take a short walk along the beach alone. His friends were busy setting up a fire pit behind the house, and he just wanted a little quiet time for himself. The sky was clear, the moonlight bright, enough to make the waves sparkle, and the cool breeze made the whole moment peaceful. But that peace didn't last. As he walked farther away from the house, he noticed something unusual. At first, he thought it was just driftwood washed up on the shore, but the shape didn't look natural. It looked like a figure sitting still, staring out at the ocean. The figure wasn't moving, and the longer Daniel looked, the more uneasy he felt. He told himself it was just another late-night walker like him, maybe a local or another tourist. But when he got closer, the truth made his stomach drop. It wasn't someone sitting. It was a man standing completely still, facing the ocean, with his arms slightly spread out like he was waiting for something. His posture was stiff, almost unnatural. Daniel slowed his pace, feeling suddenly vulnerable. Something about the man felt wrong. Hey man, Daniel called out nervously, trying not to sound scared. But the man didn't answer. He didn't even move. Just stood there with his head tilted slightly upward, staring into the black horizon. Daniel felt goosebumps crawl up his arms. He decided not to push it and turned around to head back. That's when he heard the sound of footsteps behind him. Slow, steady, crunching on the wet sand at first. He thought maybe the guy finally decided to leave too, but when he glanced back over his shoulder, his heart nearly stopped. The man wasn't just walking, he was following him. His face was still hard to make out, but his posture was disturbing. He walked stiffly, dragging his feet as if every step was painful. Yet somehow determined, Daniel quickened his pace, his heart racing. The beach house wasn't too far, but at night, everything felt farther than it actually was. He kept glancing back, hoping the man would stop or turn away, but he didn't. He just kept following. When Daniel finally reached the house, he rushed inside, slamming the sliding glass door shut behind him. His friends looked at him, surprised. "Dude, what happened? You look like you saw a ghost." One of them laughed. Daniel tried to explain, but he sounded crazy even to himself. A stiff man on the beach, just staring at the ocean, then following him silently. His friends teased him about being paranoid and overthinking. Eventually, they went back to their fire pit, leaving Daniel inside, still unsettled. But the night wasn't over. Around 3 a.m., Daniel woke up to use the bathroom. The beach house had thin curtains, and the moonlight spilled through them. When he glanced toward the window, his blood ran cold. There he was. That same man, standing in the sand, just a few feet away from the house, facing the window, facing him. Daniel froze. His throat went dry, and for a moment he thought maybe it was just his imagination. But no. The man was there, unmoving, staring at the house like he had been waiting all night. Daniel whispered to his friends, shaking them awake. They groggily looked outside, but when they pulled the curtain, the man was gone. "You're seriously losing it," one of them said, annoyed. "Just go back to sleep." But Daniel couldn't sleep. He stayed awake until sunrise, constantly checking the window. Nothing. The man never appeared again that night. The next day, Daniel was convinced it was all in his head. Maybe stress, maybe too many horror movies. He tried to enjoy the rest of the trip, but on their final night, something happened that still haunts him. They were packing up, getting ready to leave early in the morning. The house was dark except for the small lamp in the living room. Daniel went outside one last time to put some things in the car. The street was quiet, the air heavy with that strange stillness before dawn. And then he saw him again, the man, standing across the street this time, not at the beach, not in the shadows, but right there under the dim streetlight. His face was pale, his eyes wide and unblinking, fixed on Daniel. Daniel dropped everything and ran back inside, locking the door. He shouted for his friends, but when they rushed out to look, the street was empty. To this day, Daniel has no explanation. Was it some disturbed local, a stalker, something paranormal? He doesn't know, but he swears that man's face, pale and expressionless under the streetlight, will never leave his memory. And every summer, when the weather warms up and people head to the beach, Daniel chooses to stay home, because he knows vacations aren't always about fun. Sometimes, they're about survival. Summer vacations are supposed to bring families closer together. For a 17-year-old girl named Emily, it was meant to be one of the happiest times of her life. Her parents had planned a week-long trip to a quiet mountain lodge in Colorado, far away from the city, a place surrounded by tall pine trees, peaceful hiking trails, and a small shimmering lake that reflected the sky like a mirror. Emily loved the idea. She was a city girl, used to traffic, noise, and late-night lights. This vacation promised something new, a chance to reconnect with her family, relax, and maybe even take some amazing pictures for her Instagram. But what she experienced instead was something so disturbing that she refuses to ever step foot in the woods again. On the second day of their trip, Emily decided to go on a short hike alone. Her parents were inside the cabin making breakfast, and her younger brother was still asleep. She figured she would just follow the small trail behind the cabin, walk for about 20 minutes, and come right back. She had her phone, a bottle of water, and even a small flashlight in her backpack. She wasn't worried at all. The trail was beautiful. The morning sun filtered through the tall trees, casting moving shadows on the forest floor. Birds chirped, and the air smelled like pine needles and damp earth. Emily felt peaceful, like she had stepped into a postcard. But about 15 minutes into the hike, she heard something strange. It was faint at first, like the sound of someone humming, a low, slow tune that didn't match the cheerful songs of the birds. She stopped, listening carefully. The humming was definitely human. "Hello?" she called out, thinking maybe another hiker was nearby, but the humming stopped immediately. Her stomach tightened. She tried to brush it off, convincing herself it was probably nothing, maybe just her imagination. She turned around to head back, but after walking for a few minutes, she realized something terrifying. She didn't recognize the trail anymore. She had only taken one path, she thought, but now the trees all looked the same. The dirt path seemed to split in two directions, though she didn't remember it being like that earlier. Panic started to creep in. She pulled out her phone to check the GPS, but of course, there was no signal. Taking a deep breath, Emily decided to stay calm. She chose one direction and started walking quickly, her eyes scanning the trees. That's when she heard it again, the humming. But this time, it was closer. Her heart began to race. The sound was coming from deeper in the woods, off the trail. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't cheerful. It was low and drawn out, almost like a lullaby, but there was something off about it. Something unsettling. Emily picked up her pace, whispering to herself, "Just get back. Just get back." But no matter how fast she walked, the humming seemed to follow. Then came the laughter, soft at first, like a giggle, but then louder, echoing through the trees. It wasn't a child's laugh, though it was too deep, too harsh. It sounded wrong. Emily broke into a run. She didn't care if she was going in the right direction anymore. She just wanted to get out of those woods. Her backpack bounced on her shoulders. Her breathing grew heavy, and every step felt like she was being chased heaven, though she didn't dare look back. After what felt like forever, she spotted something between the trees. Relief washed over her when she saw it was the cabin. She ran faster, bursting out of the woods and stumbling onto the grass behind the lodge. Her mom was outside on the porch, holding a cup of coffee. "Emily, what's wrong?" her mom asked, alarmed by the look on her daughter's face. Emily could barely speak, out of breath and trembling. She tried to explain about the humming, the laughter, and how she got lost, but her mom didn't believe her. She said maybe Emily just panicked in the woods and imagined things, but Emily knew what she'd heard. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the sounds in her mind, that eerie humming and the awful laughter. Sometime around 2 a.m., she sat up in bed and looked out the window of the cabin. Her stomach dropped. There, standing at the edge of the trees, was a figure, tall, still, almost blending in with the darkness. She couldn't see its face, but she could feel its eyes on her. She blinked hard, thinking maybe it was just a shadow. But then she saw it raise a hand and wave slowly, deliberately. Emily gasped and backed away from the window. She woke up her parents immediately, dragging them to see. But of course, when they looked outside, the figure was gone. Her dad told her she was just overtired. Her brother laughed, calling her dramatic. But Emily didn't sleep a single second that night. The family cut their trip short after another incident the next evening. They were all sitting by the fireplace inside the cabin when they heard it. The humming, that same low, unsettling tune, drifting in through the walls. Her dad stood up, frowning, and opened the front door. The sound stopped immediately. He stepped outside with a flashlight, scanning the yard. Nothing, just trees swaying in the wind. But Emily swore she saw movement just beyond the tree line, like someone stepping back into the shadows. Her parents laughed nervously, trying to dismiss it, but the tension was thick. Nobody spoke much after that. The next morning, they packed up and left. It's been years since then, but Emily still remembers that humming. It plays in her head sometimes at night, like a broken lullaby she can't escape. To this day, she doesn't know who or what was in those woods. A stalker? Some deranged local messing with her? Or something else, something not human? Whatever it was, it followed her. It wanted her to know it was there. And the worst part is, she believes if she had stayed in those woods just a little longer, she wouldn't have made it out. Now, every time someone suggests going on a summer hike, Emily refuses. She says nature is beautiful, but it hides things humans were never meant to encounter. And if you ever find yourself walking alone in the woods on a summer morning, and you hear a low humming that stops the moment you notice it, don't stay. Don't look for the source. Just run. Because you never know who or what is humming along with you. For most people, summer vacation means beaches, mountains, or long road trips. But for Jason, a 25-year-old photographer, it meant something else entirely. Exploring forgotten places. While his friends went to parties and resorts, Jason loved traveling to abandoned towns, old motels, and forgotten roadside attractions. He believed these places carried stories worth capturing on film. In the summer of 2019, Jason decided to take a solo trip across the Southwest. His plan was to drive along backroads camp where he could, and document eerie, deserted spots that most people avoided. But somewhere deep in Arizona, he found a place that was far more disturbing than any photograph could capture. It was his third night on the road. He had been driving for hours under the blazing sun when he noticed a faded wooden sign by the highway. Sunset Motel 2, 2 miles ahead. The sign was broken, leaning to one side, but something about it intrigued him. He hadn't seen another car or person for miles, and his gas tank was running low. Even if it was abandoned, maybe there would be something interesting to photograph. He turned down the cracked road and followed it until the old motel came into view. It looked like something out of a horror movie. A long one-story building with peeling paint, broken windows, and doors that barely hung on their hinges. The parking lot was empty, weeds pushing up through the concrete, and yet, the neon sign above the office flickered faintly. Vacancy, vacancy. Jason frowned. The building looked dead, but the sign was glowing, as if someone had plugged it in just for him. Curiosity outweighed caution. He parked his car and grabbed his camera, stepping into the still air of the lot. The silence was suffocating. No crickets, no wind, nothing. Just the buzzing of the neon sign above. He snapped a few pictures of the building, but as he looked through his lens, he noticed something strange. In the second-floor window of one of the rooms, a curtain moved, slowly, like someone was peeking out. Jason lowered his camera, staring at the window with unease. The curtain was still now, perfectly still. He told himself it was just the wind, but deep down he knew there hadn't been any breeze at all. Against his better judgment, he decided to step inside the office. The door creaked loudly as he pushed it open. Inside, the air was stale, filled with dust and the faint smell of mildew. A desk sat in the center with an old bell on top, and behind it were rows of room keys hanging on hooks. Jason reached for one of the keys, just for a photo, when suddenly ding-dot the bell rang on its own. Jason jumped back, his heart pounding. He hadn't touched it. He hadn't even been close enough. He turned around immediately, ready to leave. When he froze in the glass reflection of the office window, he saw movement. A dark figure, standing in the doorway of one of the rooms across the lot. It wasn't moving, just standing there, watching him. Jason spun around to face it directly, but there was nothing. The doorway was empty. He didn't waste any more time. He grabbed his things and rushed back to his car. But when he tried to start the engine, it wouldn't turn over. The battery was dead. His stomach dropped. He hadn't had any issues before, and now suddenly, in the middle of nowhere, his car refused to start. The only option was to stay there until morning. Jason locked himself in the car and tried to rest, but the night was anything but quiet. Around midnight, he heard the sound of footsteps crunching slowly across the gravel lot. His blood turned cold. He sat perfectly still, barely breathing, listening as the steps circled his car. They weren't rushed. They weren't trying to hide. Whoever it was wanted him to know they were there. He dared to look out the window, but the lot was empty. Just shadows cast by the dim neon light. Yet the footsteps continued, circling. Then came the tapping. A light, deliberate tapping on the back window of his car. Jason whipped around, but again nothing. He gripped his camera like a weapon, his heart racing so fast he thought it would explode. For hours, he sat there in sheer terror, until finally, exhaustion pulled him into a restless sleep. At dawn, Jason woke up to silence. The lot was still, the neon sign finally dark. He tried his car again, and to his shock, the engine roared too. Life on the first try. Relieved but shaken, he drove away as fast as he could. But the nightmare didn't end there. A week later, back at home, Jason developed his film. Most of the photos looked normal desert highways, abandoned gas stations, faded signs. But when he reached the motel photos, his hands began to shake. In one picture of the parking lot, taken just as he arrived, there was something he hadn't seen before. In the window of the second-floor room, a figure stood, pale face, dark eyes, staring directly into the camera. And in another photo, the one he snapped inside the office, the reflection in the glass was clearer than he remembered. It wasn't just a shadowy figure in the doorway, it was closer. Standing only a few feet behind him, its face twisted into something inhuman. Jason dropped the photo, his chest tightening. He hadn't imagined it. He hadn't been paranoid. Someone or something had been there with him. He never showed the motel pictures to anyone. He deleted the digital copies and burned the film negatives. But he couldn't erase the memory. To this day, he swears he still hears the sound of footsteps outside his window some nights. Slow, deliberate, circling like whatever followed him from that motel never really let him go. And now, every time he drives past an old, forgotten roadside sign, he refuses to stop. He doesn't care if it looks like the perfect photo opportunity, because he knows some places aren't abandoned at all. They're waiting, watching. And once you step inside, they never let you leave the same. If you made it this far, it means you survived the stories. But don't get too comfortable, because the truth is, nightmares don't just end when the video stops. They follow you through the silence of your room, through the shadows in your hallway, and sometimes, even into your dreams. If these 3 summer vacation horror stories gave you chills, imagine what's waiting in the next video. You don't want to miss it. So, before you turn off the lights, make sure you hit that like button. It lets me know you're brave enough to hear more. And if you're new here, subscribe and join our growing community of night owls who crave the unsettling, the disturbing, and the unexplained. I want to hear from you, too. Have you ever experienced something terrifying on a vacation? A hotel? A forest? Or maybe even a lonely roadside stop that didn't feel right? Drop your story in the comments below. I might feature it in a future video. Remember, darkness hides more than you think, so stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.